The Lost City of Cahokia. Voices at Dusk. Chapter 1. Across the Evening Plain. The light is changing now, as it always does in these final hours before darkness falls. The sun hangs low over the western tree line, its brilliance softened to amber, casting long shadows across the floodplain. The air itself seems to slow, to thicken with the warmth still rising from the earth, carrying with it the scent of river water and turned soil, of grasses drying in the breeze. We are walking now, you and I, across this broad expanse of land. There is no hurry here. There has never been hurry in this place at this hour. The day's heat is lifting, replaced by something gentler, a coolness that moves across the skin like silk, barely noticed at first, then welcomed. Underfoot, the ground is soft. Generations of floods have left their gift here, rich bottomland soil, dark and yielding, marked by the passage of countless feet. The grasses bend as we move through them, tall enough to brush against our hands, their seed heads catching the amber light. They whisper as we pass, a sound like breath, like the turning of pages in some ancient book written in a language older than words. To our left, the great river moves in its eternal course. We cannot see it from here, not quite, but we know it is there. We can hear it in the distance, a low murmur beneath all other sounds. We can smell it on the wind, that particular perfume of moving water, of fish and clay banks, of willow roots and drowned leaves. The Mississippi has always been here, long before there were people to name it, and it will remain long after all names have been forgotten. It knows patience. It knows time. The floodplain stretches in all directions, vast and open. To the east, where we have come from, the land rises gradually toward distant bluffs, their faces already deepening into shadow. Behind us, the sun continues its descent, painting the sky in layers, gold nearest the horizon, then peach, then a pale blue that will soon deepen to violet. There are no clouds today, nothing to interrupt this clear gradient of color, this slow fade from day into evening. And ahead, to the north and west, we begin to see them. The mounds. At first, they appear as gentle swellings on the horizon, barely distinguishable from the natural roll of the land. But as we walk, as the light continues to change and our eyes adjust to distance and depth, we begin to understand what we are seeing. These are not hills. They are too regular, too purposeful. They rise from the flat plain with intention, their slopes smooth and deliberate, their summits flat and wide. There are many of them. Even from this distance, we can count 5, 7, a dozen more. They spread across the landscape ahead like a gathering of giants, silent and watchful. The largest of them all stands at the center, massive even from here, its presence commanding the horizon. As the sun drops lower, the western faces of these earthen monuments catch the last direct light, glowing soft and golden, while their eastern slopes fall into shadow. This is Cahokia. We are still perhaps a mile away, maybe more. Distance is difficult to judge across such open country, where there are few trees to mark the middle ground, few features to anchor the eye. But we can see it now, this place we have come to witness. We can begin to sense its scale, its ambition, the sheer accumulated labor of its creation. The land itself speaks here, shaped by human hands into something both earthly and sacred. These mounds are not stone, not permanent in the way of mountains or bedrock. They are soil and clay, carried basket by basket, packed and layered, raised over years and decades and lifetimes. They are the work of thousands, the dream of generations. And yet they sit so naturally upon the plain, so gently against the sky, that they seem almost to have grown here, to have emerged from the earth itself like slow green thoughts. The sounds around us are changing as evening settles. The insects are beginning their twilight chorus, crickets mostly, and the first tentative calls of katydids, testing their voices against the cooling air. Somewhere in the tall grass, a meadow vole moves through its hidden pathways, rustling. A hawk, far overhead, gives one last cry before spiraling down toward the tree line to roost. And from Cahokia itself, from that gathering of mounds still ahead of us, we begin to hear something else. Not loudly, distance and wind steal clarity from sound, but distinctly. Human voices. The barking of a dog. The rhythmic thump of wood on wood, perhaps a pestle working in a mortar, perhaps something else. The faint thread of smoke rises from several points across the city, vertical plumes that catch the light, turning from white to gold to gray as they climb into the evening sky. People are there. Thousands of them. Going about their evening tasks, preparing food, tending fires, calling to one another across the plazas and neighborhoods. We cannot see them yet, cannot make out individuals or details, but we know they are there. We can feel the presence of the city, its living warmth, its collected breath. The breeze shifts, coming now from the northwest, and it carries with it the scent of wood smoke and cooking, something savory, perhaps fish or game, mixed with the earthy smell of corn being ground. It is the smell of home, of habitation, of human life gathered together in one place. It speaks of comfort and routine, of the day's work completed, of evening meals being shared. We continue walking, our pace unchanged, unhurried. The grass whispers. The insects sing. The light continues its slow transformation, degree by degree, shade by shade. The mounds grow larger as we approach, their true scale beginning to reveal itself. That largest one, the one at the center, is enormous. Far bigger than it appeared from a distance. It rises perhaps 100 feet into the air, its base sprawling across acres of ground. Upon its summit, we can now just barely make out a structure, a building of some kind, catching the last horizontal rays of the sun. To either side of the great central mound, others stand in careful arrangement. Some are smaller, more intimate in scale. Others are still massive, commanding their own spaces, their own circles of influence. Between them, we can begin to see the outlines of plazas, open spaces defined by the placement of the mounds themselves, spaces designed for gathering, for ceremony, for the collective life of the city. The land beneath our feet is beginning to change. The wild grasses give way to paths, to areas of trampled earth where many feet have passed. We see the first scattered evidence of fields, cleared patches where corn has grown, the stalks now mostly harvested, leaving only stubble and dried leaves. Here and there, squash vines sprawl across low mounds of earth, their broad leaves darkening as the light fades, their fruits hidden beneath the foliage. A stand of young trees appears to our right, cottonwoods planted in a deliberate line, their leaves rustling silver in the breeze. They mark some boundary, perhaps, or provide shelter for a structure we cannot yet see. Beyond them, more smoke rises, more thin columns marking hearths and homes. The sky above us is deepening now, the blue growing richer, more saturated. The gold at the horizon has concentrated, intensified, as if all the remaining light is gathering there for one last brilliant moment before it fades. The first star appears, not quite visible yet if you look directly at it, but there if you glance away, a point of silver in the eastern sky. We are close now. Close enough to see movement between the mounds, figures crossing from one place to another, dark against the golden light. Close enough to hear voices more clearly, though the words themselves remain indistinct. The sound of human speech, rising and falling, the particular music of conversation and laughter and call and response. A path opens before us, wider and more defined than the others we have crossed. It leads toward the city, toward the gap between two smaller mounds that seems to serve as an entrance, a threshold. The earth here is packed hard and smooth from countless passages, and on either side we see the first structures, simple buildings of wattle and daub, their walls woven from willow branches and plastered with clay, their roofs thatched with prairie grass. The evening settles around us like a blanket, warm and soft and welcoming. We are arriving now, stepping from the open plain into the outer edges of Cahokia, this great city of earth and wood and human aspiration. The voices grow clearer. The smoke drifts overhead. The mounds rise before us, patient and eternal. And we step forward, slowly, into the gathering dusk. Chapter 2. The Outer Circles. The path widens as we enter, becoming almost a road, worn smooth by the passage of seasons and feet beyond counting. On either side, the first homes of Cahokia rise from the earth like extensions of the land itself, their walls the color of clay and straw, their roofs a patchwork of golden thatch that seems to hold the last light of day. These dwellings sit in comfortable clusters, 3 or 4 together, with small open spaces between them where the ground has been swept clean. In one such clearing, a woman kneels beside a grinding stone, working with the steady, practiced rhythm of someone who has done this 10,000 times before. The stone makes a soft, rushing sound as she pushes it forward and pulls it back, forward and back, transforming dried corn into meal. The muscles of her shoulders move beneath her doeskin dress, and she hums quietly to herself. Not quite a song, just a wordless melody that rises and falls with the motion of her work. She does not look up as we pass, lost in the meditation of her task, and we do not disturb her. There is a peacefulness in witnessing without intruding, in moving through this place as quiet observers of its evening rituals. Beside her home, a small garden plot shows the careful attention of daily tending. Squash plants sprawl in lazy abundance, their stems thick as a child's wrist, their leaves broad and softening now as the light fades. Between them, the dried stalks of harvested beans stand like sentinels, and here and there, the last flowers of the season nod in the breeze. Sunflowers mostly, their faces turned eastward now, following the memory of morning. A wooden fence of woven saplings encloses the space, keeping deer and rabbits at bay, though we can see where groundhogs have attempted their own entrances, leaving small excavations at the fence's base. The smell of cooking grows stronger here. From nearly every home, smoke rises through roof openings, carrying with it the mingled scents of the evening meal. There is corn, of course, always corn, in one form or another. But tonight there is also the rich aroma of fish roasting over coals, and something else, something sweet and earthy that might be tubers, perhaps groundnuts or Jerusalem artichokes, baking in the embers. A dog appears from between 2 houses, pausing to regard us with calm brown eyes. It is a medium-sized animal, lean and alert, with a thick coat and pricked ears. After a moment's assessment, it decides we are of no particular concern and trots off on some errand of its own, disappearing around the corner of a storage structure raised on posts above the ground. We catch a glimpse of what hangs there: bundles of dried herbs, strings of fish, baskets of corn still in the husk, all the preserved wealth of summer being kept for the months ahead. 2 children emerge from a doorway draped with a hide curtain, a boy and a girl, perhaps 6 and 8 years old. They are playing some kind of game with small carved stones, tossing them into a pattern drawn in the dirt. Their voices are soft, not the wild shouts of midday play but the quieter contentment of evening, when energy has been spent and what remains is gentle. The girl laughs at something, a delicate sound, like water over pebbles, and her brother responds with mock indignation that dissolves immediately into his own laughter. An older woman appears in the doorway behind them, her face lined with years and wisdom, her hair shot through with silver. She speaks to them in a language we do not understand, but whose tone is universal, gentle, redirecting, calling them towards something. The children gather their stones and slip back inside, and the woman glances our way for just a moment. Her eyes are kind. She nods, a small acknowledgement of our presence, and then she too disappears within, letting the hide curtain fall back into place. We continue along the path, which curves slightly to follow the natural contours of the land. More homes appear on either side, some larger than others, but all following similar patterns of construction. The walls are made of vertical posts set into the ground, with smaller branches woven horizontally between them, the whole covered with a thick plaster of clay mixed with grass and sometimes shells. These walls are strong enough to withstand wind and rain, yet they breathe, allowing air to move through them in the heat of summer. The roofs are steeply pitched, designed to shed the heavy rains that come with the seasons. They extend out slightly beyond the walls, creating shallow eaves that provide shelter for work that continues regardless of weather. Under one such overhang, we see a man working leather, using a smooth stone to scrape a deerskin stretched on a frame. His movements are slow and methodical, the scraping making a rhythmic sound that adds to the evening symphony of small noises. Beside him, a teenage boy watches and learns, occasionally reaching out to touch the hide, testing its suppleness, understanding through his hands what words alone cannot fully teach. The man speaks to him quietly, words we cannot hear, and the boy nods, his face serious with concentration. This is how knowledge passes here, from one generation to the next, through patience and presence and the sharing of work. A small fire burns in a pit ringed with stones, and near it, An elderly man sits on a low stool, working cordage from plant fibers. His fingers, gnarled with age, move with surprising speed and certainty, twisting and braiding the fibers into strong rope. The firelight flickers across his face, illuminating the deep lines around his eyes, lines carved by years of laughter and squinting into the sun, by the full measure of a long life lived. The path widens again, opening into a small plaza shared by perhaps a dozen homes. In its center, a larger fire burns in a communal hearth, and here several families have gathered. Women sit together, talking in low voices while their hands continue their work, one weaving a basket from river cane, another sewing moccasins with bone needles and sinew thread. Their conversation rises and falls like music, punctuated occasionally by soft laughter or the murmur of agreement. Near them, 3 men are repairing a canoe, examining its birch bark hull for places that need patching. They work mostly in silence, the kind of comfortable quiet that exists between people who know each other well and need no constant talk to affirm their connection. One of them applies fresh pine pitch to a seam, using a small wooden paddle to smooth it into place. The resinous scent cuts through the other smells of the evening, sharp and clean. Children play at the edges of the firelight, their game involving a ball made of tightly wrapped leather. They toss it back and forth, calling out names and numbers in their musical language. When the ball escapes their circle and rolls toward us, a small girl runs to retrieve it. She is perhaps 5 years old, with dark eyes and hair plaited into 2 braids. She picks up the ball, then looks at us with open curiosity, unafraid but uncertain. A woman, her mother perhaps, calls gently, and the child runs back to the safety of the firelight, glancing over her shoulder once before rejoining her friends. The sky above us has deepened to a rich blue-violet now, and the first stars are clearly visible, no longer requiring the trick of peripheral vision to be seen. The evening star hangs bright in the west, following the sun down toward the horizon. Against this darkening canvas, the smoke from countless hearths rises in pale columns, and here and there we can see the warm glow of fires through doorways and smoke holes, each one a small beacon of human warmth against the coming night. We pass a structure that is clearly not a home but some kind of workshop. Through its open sides, we can see racks of pottery drying, vessels of all sizes and shapes, bowls, jars, bottles with narrow necks, large storage containers. Some are plain, their surfaces smooth and unadorned. Others show intricate designs scratched or painted into the clay, spirals, chevrons, cross-hatching, symbols whose meanings we can only guess. The potter herself is nowhere to be seen, her workday complete, but the evidence of her skill surrounds us, each piece a marriage of function and art. The air is cooler now, noticeably so, and it carries with it the damp scent of the nearby wetlands, cattails and wild rice, mud and decomposing vegetation, the perfume of fertile edges where water meets land. Frogs have begun their evening chorus in these hidden pools, their voices creating a constant backdrop of sound, rising and falling in waves, each individual call joining with thousands of others to create something like song. The path continues to lead us gently inward, toward the heart of Cahokia. The homes around us begin to change subtly, not drastically different, but perhaps slightly larger, their construction showing additional care, their gardens more extensive. We are moving from the outermost circles of the city toward something more central, more concentrated. A young couple walks past us, heading outward toward the homes we've just passed. They carry water jars balanced on their shoulders, likely returning from one of the springs or streams that supply the city. They move in comfortable synchrony, their steps matched, and they speak to each other in voices too low for us to hear. The woman laughs at something her companion says, and the sound is warm and genuine, the kind of laughter that comes from deep affection and shared understanding. Behind us now, the outer neighborhoods settle more fully into evening. We can hear mothers calling children inside, final tasks being completed, the sounds of domestic life preparing for night. A baby cries briefly, then quiets, comforted, we imagine, by familiar arms and a familiar voice. Someone begins to sing, a wordless melody that floats through the darkening air like something physical, like smoke or mist. Ahead, we can see where the path we're following joins a larger thoroughfare, and beyond that, we can make out the silhouettes of bigger structures, more imposing mounds. The glow of larger fires reflects off the bellies of the few small clouds that have appeared in the eastern sky, painting them soft orange and pink. We are leaving the quiet domesticity of the outer circles now, moving toward the more public spaces of Cahokia, toward the ceremonial and communal heart of this great city. But we carry with us the peace of what we've witnessed, The simple, profound beauty of daily life concluding, of families gathering, of work completed and rest approaching. The transition is gentle, as all things are gentle here in this hour. We do not leave one world and enter another abruptly, but rather flow naturally from the intimate to the collective, from the individual hearth to the shared fire. And the darkness continues to gather, soft and welcoming, as we walk on. Chapter 3. The Work of Hands. The thoroughfare we have joined is wider than any path we've walked so far, packed hard as stone from years of constant traffic. It runs straight for a distance, then curves gently, following a logic that respects both the land's natural shape and the placement of the sacred mounds. On both sides, the character of Cahokia reveals itself more fully now. This is a working city, a place where human hands transform raw materials into the necessities and luxuries of life. We pass first through an area where the scent of wood shavings fills the air, sweet and resinous. 3 workshops stand close together, their sides open to allow light and air to flow through. In the nearest one, a man is covering his tools for the night, wrapping them carefully in leather and placing them in a wooden chest. His hands move with the reverence of someone who knows his implements are precious. Each adds and gouge, each scraper and all represents not just function but the accumulated knowledge of generations. Around him, the evidence of his craft lies scattered in various stages of completion. There are bowls carved from single pieces of wood, their interiors hollowed out with patient precision. There are long poles destined to become roof beams or parts of palisade walls. There are smaller items too, handles for tools, spindles for weaving, gaming pieces, spoons. The wood itself speaks of diversity: pale ash, dark walnut, the red-orange of cedar, the honey color of oak. Each type has its purpose, its particular strength or flexibility, its own way of yielding to the blade. The woodworker looks up as he senses our presence and offers a small nod of acknowledgement. His face is perhaps 40 years old, weathered by sun and marked by the small scars that come from a lifetime of working with sharp tools. There is a calmness about him, the deep contentment of someone whose hands and mind work in harmony, who creates useful beauty from the raw material of the forest. His apprentice, a young woman of perhaps 16, is sweeping the floor of the workshop, gathering the curls and shavings into a basket. These will not be wasted. They'll fuel someone's fire tonight, or perhaps be mixed into clay for pottery, or used as tinder. Nothing here is carelessly discarded. The young woman works with efficient grace, and when she finishes, she exchanges a few quiet words with the master before heading off into the evening, likely toward her own family's hearth. We continue along the thoroughfare, and the next workshop we encounter fills the air with a different scent, earthy and mineral, the smell of wet clay. This is a potter's compound, and it is more extensive than the woodworker's space. Several structures cluster together, and between them, racks upon racks of pottery stand drying in the evening air. The variety is remarkable, from vessels small enough to hold in one palm to storage jars that would reach a person's waist, each one shaped by skilled hands on a bed of sand or stone, smoothed and decorated with tools of bone and wood and shell. A woman works at a table under a thatched roof, but she is not making new pots now. Instead, she is mixing pigments, grinding mineral powders in small stone mortars, adding water drop by careful drop to achieve the right consistency. There is red ochre, bright and rusty. There is a white clay that will fire to cream. There is manganese for black, and a copper-rich clay that will produce designs in pale green. These colors will be painted onto vessels that have dried but not yet been fired, creating patterns that will become permanent in the kiln's heat. 2 younger potters, sisters, perhaps, or cousins, their faces showing similar features, are carefully carrying greenware from the drying racks to a storage structure. They move slowly, attentive to every step, knowing that clay at this stage is fragile, that a stumble could destroy days of work. They speak to each other in murmurs, coordinating their movements, a vessel passing from one set of hands to another with the trust of long practice. Near the edge of the compound, a kiln stands dark and cold, its work done for now. It is a substantial structure, built of clay and stone, large enough to fire dozens of vessels at once. The ground around it is littered with broken potsherds, pieces too damaged to save, or test pieces used to check temperatures, or simply the inevitable casualties of the firing process. Even these fragments show beauty in their cross-sections, revealing the layers of clay, the thickness of walls, the patterns that only partially survived. An older potter, her hair more gray than black, sits on a stool near the kiln, examining several finished pieces that must have been removed earlier today. She holds each one up to the fading light, turning it slowly, checking for cracks or imperfections. Most she sets aside with apparent satisfaction. One she frowns at slightly, running her finger along a hairline crack, then shrugs with a philosophical acceptance of someone who knows that not everything can be perfect, that clay has its own will and sometimes goes its own way despite the potter's intentions. She notices us watching and smiles, a warm expression that crinkles the corners of her eyes. She gestures to the pots around her as if to say, "Look at what we have made," and there is pride in the gesture but no arrogance, simply the satisfaction of work done well. We nod in response, honoring what she and her companions have created, and she returns to her examination as we move on. The thoroughfare curves, and we enter an area where textiles dominate. Here, several looms stand under large shelters, their vertical frames reaching nearly to the roof beams. Most are empty now, their day's work complete, but on one, a partially finished blanket remains, its pattern of brown and cream stripes clearly visible even in the dimming light. The warp threads hang vertical and taut, and we can see where the weft has been woven through them, packed tight with a bone beater to create a fabric that is both strong and supple. Nearby, a woman is winding yarn from loose fibers, using a spindle that she sets spinning with a practiced flick of her fingers. The spindle turns and turns, twisting the fibers into thread, and she feeds more fiber into it from a bundle tucked under her arm, the motion so automatic that she barely seems to think about it. She is telling a story to two children who sit at her feet, their faces upturned and attentive, and the spindle never falters in its rotation even as her voice rises and falls with the drama of her tale. We cannot understand her words, but we can hear in her voice the rhythms of storytelling, the building of tension, the moment of revelation, the satisfying conclusion. The children gasp at appropriate moments, laugh at others, and when the story ends, they beg for another. The woman smiles and shakes her head, pointing toward the horizon where the last light is fading. "Time for home," she seems to say. "Time for evening meals and sleep." The children accept this reluctantly but without argument, and they rise and disappear into the gathering darkness, calling good night in voices that carry clearly through the still air. The spinner gathers her yarn and her bundle of raw fiber, wrapping them carefully, and carries them into a storage structure. When she emerges, she sees us standing there and makes a gesture of welcome, as if inviting us to sit, to rest, to share her fire. It is a generous impulse, the kind of hospitality that seems natural here. We acknowledge her kindness with gratitude but continue on our way, knowing that our path lies elsewhere tonight. A different scent reaches us now, leather and tannin, sharp and pungent. We are passing through an area where hides are processed, transformed from raw skins into supple material for clothing, bags, coverings, bindings. Several hides are stretched on frames, held taut by cordage, in various stages of preparation. Some still show hair, while others have been scraped clean, their surfaces pale and smooth. The tools of the trade hang on racks, scrapers with blades of stone or bone, stretching stakes, stirring paddles for the tanning solutions. The tanners themselves have finished their work for the day. This is labor best done in morning and afternoon light, requiring precision and strength. But one man remains, tidying the work area, hanging tools in their proper places, checking the hides to ensure they are properly secured for the night. He works methodically, and there is something almost ceremonial in the way he puts each item in its place, as if the order of things matters not just for efficiency but for some deeper reason, some acknowledgement of the rightness of structure and care. We pass a trading area where goods from far away are bought and sold. The traders are packing up now, wrapping precious items in soft hide, placing them in baskets and wooden boxes. We catch glimpses of things that speak of distant places. Marine shells from the southern Gulf, their inner surfaces gleaming like rainbows. Copper nuggets from the northern lakes, heavy and reddish gold. Sheets of mica from the eastern mountains, thin and transparent, splitting light into shimmer. Obsidian blades from the far west, black and sharper than anything else in the world. One trader, a man whose weathered face and strong legs speak of countless miles walked, is securing his bundles with careful knots. He moves with the efficiency of someone who has done this hundreds of times, but there is no sloppiness in his haste to finish. Each knot is tested, each bundle balanced. His journey home, or to wherever he lodges in the city, will be through darkness, and he wants no surprises of shifting loads or torn wrapping. His companion, younger and perhaps learning the trade, asks him something, and the older man pauses to explain, showing how a particular knot is tied, demonstrating twice before letting the young man try it himself. The lesson is patient, the teaching clear, and when the apprentice gets it right, The trader claps him once on the shoulder in approval. They finish their packing together, hoist their bundles, and set off into the evening, their voices fading as they discuss tomorrow's possibilities. All around us, this winding down continues. A basket maker gathers her reeds and willow shoots, bundling them together for tomorrow's work. A bone worker carefully stores his awls and needles, his raw materials, antlers and leg bones saved for meals, wrapped and put away. A man who makes cordage winds his finished rope into neat coils, hanging them from pegs driven into a post, each one labeled with a marker we do not understand but which clearly indicates its length or strength or intended purpose. Fires are being lit now, not the working fires of forge or kiln but the social fires of evening, fires for warmth and light and gathering. We can see them beginning to glow in the spaces between structures, in the small plazas where people congregate. The smoke rises vertically in the still air, and the firelight creates pools of warm illumination against the deepening blue of dusk. Voices carry through the evening. Conversations, laughter, the calling back and forth of people who know each other well, who are comfortable in each other's presence. There is no urgency in these voices, no stress or worry that we can detect. They carry the tone of day's end, of work completed, of the satisfaction that comes from contributing to the life of the community. The thoroughfare begins to open up ahead of us, widening dramatically. We can sense a large open space approaching, feel the way the air moves differently where there are no structures to block it. The mounds are closer now, their dark shapes rising against the star-filled sky, and the largest of them all, Monk's Mound, though we do not yet know it by that name, dominates the northern horizon, immense and patient. We are approaching the Grand Plaza, the ceremonial heart of Cahokia, the place where the city's collective life finds its fullest expression. The transition from the working neighborhoods to this sacred center is gradual but unmistakable, marked not by walls or gates but by a change in the quality of space itself, a sense of openness and intentionality. The craftspeople and traders are behind us now, settling into their evening routines. The work of hands has paused for the day, but its evidence surrounds us. In every useful object, every beautiful vessel, every woven fabric and carved tool. This is a city built by skill and patience, by the accumulation of small acts of creation repeated thousands of times over. And ahead, the plaza waits, vast and empty, ready to receive us into its sacred geometry, into the open space at the center of all things. We walk forward, leaving the intimate scale of workshops and hearths, moving toward something larger, something that speaks not of individual achievement but of collective vision, of a people's shared understanding of the cosmos and their place within it. The darkness is nearly complete now, but the stars above shine with astonishing clarity, and the fires scattered throughout the city create a mirror of that celestial light here on earth. As above, so below, the eternal conversation between heaven and ground. Chapter 4. The Open Ground. The Grand Plaza unfolds before us like a lake of earth, so vast that its far edges blur into the darkness. This is not simply an empty space, it is an intentional emptiness, a clearing carved from the world's clutter, designed to hold multitudes, to allow for gatherings both sacred and social. The ground beneath our feet changes texture as we step into it, becoming finer, more uniform, packed by countless ceremonial dances, by processions, by games and gatherings that have taken place here season after season, year after year. Our footsteps make almost no sound. The dust is fine as powder in places, and it rises in small puffs with each step we take, visible in the starlight as faint clouds that settle slowly back to earth. There is something humbling about walking across this expanse, about feeling oneself become small against such deliberately created space. The sky seems larger here, unobstructed, and the stars have multiplied in the minutes since we last looked up. Hundreds of them, thousands, a scattered brilliance that transforms the night into something alive with distant light. The plaza stretches perhaps 15 acres, maybe more. It is difficult to judge distance in darkness, but we can sense its boundaries by the way structures and mounds rise at its edges, dark masses against the star-filled sky. To our left, a long earthen ridge runs parallel to the plaza's length, not quite a mound but an elevated platform, deliberate in its construction. To our right, smaller mounds punctuate the open space at intervals that seem purposeful, mathematical even, as if their placement follows some geometric principle we cannot quite perceive but can somehow feel. And directly ahead, dominating everything, rises Monk's Mound. Even in darkness, its scale is overwhelming. It climbs into the night sky in 4 distinct terraces, each one a massive achievement of engineering and collective labor. The base spreads across more than 14 acres, wider than the plaza itself, is deep. The summit, we know, rises more than 100 feet above where we stand, though in this light we cannot see its top clearly, only its silhouette, a geometric mountain against the stars. As our eyes adjust, we begin to see that we are not alone in the plaza. Others move through the space, individuals and small groups, walking with the same unhurried pace that we maintain. They are shapes more than people at this distance, dark forms against slightly less dark ground, but we can hear them, the soft pad of feet on earth, the murmur of quiet conversation, the occasional laugh that carries across the open space and then fades. Near the center of the plaza, several fires have been lit, arranged in a pattern that might be a circle or might be something more complex. They are not large fires, not the bonfires of celebration, but smaller, more contained, fires for light and warmth, for marking space, for creating gathering points in the vastness. The flames cast dancing light upward, illuminating the faces of those who sit near them, creating small islands of visibility in the sea of darkness. We walk toward the nearest of these fires, not intruding but drawing close enough to see what draws people here. A group of perhaps 15 people sits in a loose circle, and one among them is speaking, telling a story or sharing news. His voice rises and falls with expression, and occasionally the others respond, a question, a comment, sounds of agreement or surprise. This is the ancient human pattern, old as speech itself. People gathering around fire, sharing words, creating community through the simple act of being together in the darkness. Beyond them, another group sits in silence, but it is not an empty silence. They face eastward, toward where the moon will soon rise, and there is something meditative in their stillness, something that speaks of prayer or contemplation. One of them holds a rattle made from a gourd, and occasionally it sounds, a soft, rhythmic shaking that seems to pulse like a heartbeat, like the breath of the earth itself. From somewhere across the plaza, music reaches us. It is difficult to locate exactly, the way sound behaves strangely across open ground, but we can hear it clearly enough. The hollow tone of a wooden flute, playing a melody that seems to have no beginning or end, that simply exists as part of the night. The notes are long and breathy, sometimes wavering slightly in a way that makes them sound almost human, almost like a voice singing without words. There is something haunting in the melody, but not sad. Rather, it carries a quality of longing fulfilled, of connection achieved, of peace found. Another instrument joins it, a drum, deep and resonant. Its rhythm is steady, not fast or frantic but measured, heartbeat slow. The two instruments weave together, flute and drum, creating a soundscape that seems to expand the plaza even further, to give it depth and dimension beyond the merely physical. We continue walking, angling slightly toward the left, toward the base of Monk's Mound. As we move, we pass through areas where different activities are unfolding. In one place, children are playing a game that involves throwing small bags filled with sand or seeds, trying to land them on a series of squares marked out in the dust. They play quietly, without the wild energy of daytime, their movements careful and considered. An adult sits nearby, watching over them but not interfering, letting them work out the rules and disputes among themselves. In another area, several women are arranging offerings on the ground, bundles of tobacco, ears of corn, small bowls of food. They work with reverence, placing each item with care, creating a pattern that has meaning we can only guess at. When they finish, they sit back on their heels, and one of them begins to sing, her voice soft and clear. The others join her, creating a harmony that is simple but beautiful, their voices blending and separating, weaving together like the threads of a basket. The eastern sky is beginning to show the first hint of moonrise, not the moon itself yet, but a brightening along the horizon, a pale glow that promises its arrival. The people facing that direction seem to sense it, their attention sharpening, their stillness deepening. We reach the base of Monk's Mound, and here the ground begins to slope upward. The climb to the summit is not vertical but gradual, each terrace accessible by ramps or stairs built into the earthwork itself. Even in darkness, we can see that the pathways are well maintained, the earth packed firm, the edges defined clearly. A few people are ascending the mound as we arrive, their silhouettes visible against the slightly lighter sky as they climb. They move slowly, and there is something ceremonial in their pace, as if the act of climbing is itself a form of prayer or meditation. One of them carries a torch, and its light creates a small pool of visibility that moves up the slope like a wandering star. At the base of the mound, a man sits cross-legged on a mat, and before him are spread various items, bundles of herbs, small clay pots, what might be crystals or special stones. He is not selling these things. Rather, he seems to be preparing them for some purpose, sorting them, arranging them, occasionally lifting one to examine it more closely in the starlight. He hums as he works, a deep, resonant sound that we feel as much as hear. To the side of the main pathway, a small shrine has been created. It consists of a carefully arranged pile of stones, some painted with red ochre, others left natural. Among the stones, offerings have been placed: feathers, small carved figures, a beautiful piece of pottery no larger than a thumb. Smoke rises from a bundle of burning sage, its scent sharp and cleansing, drifting across the pathway to where we stand. The drum and flute continue their dialogue somewhere behind us in the plaza, and now other sounds join them. Voices raised in song, though not loud, not performed but rather offered, given to the night as a kind of gift. The melody is unlike anything we recognize, built on scales and intervals that belong to this place and this people, that have been shaped by the rhythms of this land and this river. We stand for a moment at the base of the great mound, looking up at its dark mass rising into the night. The structure at its summit is barely visible, a suggestion of walls and roof against the stars, a place of importance, a dwelling for those who serve the community in sacred ways. No light shows from it now, but we know it is there, patient and watchful, overseeing the city spread out below. The moon breaks the horizon, sudden and brilliant. It is full, or nearly so, and its light transforms everything instantly. The plaza becomes visible in shades of silver and shadow. The mounds emerge from darkness, their slopes catching the lunar glow. The people scattered across the open ground are revealed, more than we realized, perhaps 50 or 60 in all, gathered in various groups or walking alone, each drawn here by their own purposes but united by the shared experience of evening in this sacred space. The moonlight illuminates the pathway up Monk's Mound, and we can see now that several more people are climbing, moving steadily upward. The torchbearer has reached the second terrace and paused there, setting the torch in a holder that must have been placed for exactly this purpose. The flame dances in the breeze, small and brave against the vast darkness. A call goes up from one of the groups near the central fires, a single voice, pure and strong, singing out a note that hangs in the air. Others answer, creating a brief cascade of sound that rises and falls and then settles back into quietness. It is a greeting, perhaps, to the moon, or a marker of some transition, some moment recognized and honored. We feel the pull of the mound, the invitation to climb, to see what can be seen from such height, to stand where the builders of this place once stood and envisioned what they would create. But there is no rush, no urgency. The night is still young. The moon has only begun its journey across the sky. There is time for everything, time to observe, time to participate, time to simply be present in this place where earth meets sky and human aspiration has created something that bridges the two. The breeze picks up slightly, coming from the south, carrying with it the smell of the river and the wetlands, of water and growth and the endless cycle of life sustained by this great waterway. It stirs the dust of the plaza into small spirals that dance briefly and then collapse. It causes the flames of the fires to lean and flutter, creating new patterns of light and shadow. Someone begins a new song, and this one has a rhythm that others can join, a call and response pattern. The first voice calls out a line, and others answer in unison, their voices blending into something larger than any individual sound. The rhythm is steady, like walking, like the beating of a heart, and it seems to anchor everyone in the plaza, to create a shared pulse that connects them all. The people on the mound continue their ascent. The torch marks their progress as they move from terrace to terrace, climbing higher, growing smaller against the immensity of the earthwork. And below, in the plaza, the community continues its evening rituals, gathering, singing, offering, simply being together in this place they have created, this monument to collective vision and shared labor. We stand at the threshold, at the base of the great mound, feeling the weight of earth rising above us, feeling the pull of height and the promise of perspective. The night stretches ahead, full of possibility, full of peace. And slowly, unhurriedly, we place our foot on the pathway and begin to climb. Chapter 5. The Ascent. The pathway rises beneath our feet, steady and sure. It has been built with care, not carved from the mound but constructed as an integral part of it, the earth packed and shaped to create a ramp wide enough for several people to walk abreast. The slope is gradual, mindful of the climb ahead, designed to be ascended with dignity rather than struggle. Our breathing deepens slightly with the effort, but it is not difficult, merely present, a reminder that we are bodies moving through space, participating physically in this journey upward. The surface beneath us is smooth, worn by countless footsteps over generations. We can feel the history in it, the passage of all those who have walked this path before us, leaders and common people, young and old, those coming to pray and those coming simply to see. Each step we take connects us to that long procession of humanity, makes us part of something that extends far beyond this single moment, this single night. As we climb, the plaza below begins to reveal itself more fully. We can see now the pattern of fires scattered across its expanse, the small clusters of people gathered around each one. From this elevation, the human activity takes on a different quality. We see not individuals but the shapes of community, the way people naturally form circles and groups, the way they orient themselves toward fire and each other. The moonlight catches the smoke rising from these fires, transforming it into silver ribbons that climb toward the stars. We reach the first terrace and pause, turning to look back. The view has already changed significantly. The plaza spreads below us like a great empty canvas, and beyond it, the city extends in all directions, a constellation of small fires marking homes and hearths, of structures clustered in neighborhoods, of pathways connecting one area to another. We can see the logic of the city's layout from here, the way it radiates outward from the central plaza, the way the smaller mounds punctuate the landscape, creating nodes of significance that organize the surrounding space. The music from below continues to reach us, though it is softer now, gentled by distance. The flute still weaves its melody, patient and unhurried, and the drum maintains its steady pulse. Other sounds rise as well, voices in conversation, the bark of a dog, the cry of a night bird passing overhead. All of these sounds blend together into something larger than any single element, a symphony of evening life that fills the air like a presence. We continue upward to the second terrace. The ramp here angles to the left, following the contour of the mound, and as we walk, different vistas open before us. To the south, we can now see the river, the great Mississippi, flowing dark and silver under the moon. It is wide here, perhaps half a mile across, and its surface catches the lunar light in long, shimmering streaks that shift and dance with the current. The river moves slowly, patiently, carrying its burden of water and silt from distant places to distant destinations, indifferent to the human activity along its banks but essential to that activity nonetheless. We can see, too, the wetlands that border the river, vast areas where water and land merge into something that is neither and both, where cattails grow thick and waterfowl nest in uncountable numbers. Even at night, these marshes are alive with sound, the constant chorus of frogs, the occasional splash of a fish or muskrat, the rustle of reeds moving in the breeze. They are productive places, these wetlands, providing food and materials, filtering water, creating habitat for creatures great and small. The torch we saw earlier still burns on this second terrace, held in its stone bracket. As we pass it, the flame illuminates our faces briefly, warmly, creating a small pocket of golden light before we move beyond it into the softer illumination of moon and stars. The torchbearer who placed it here is gone now, having continued upward or descended back to the plaza, but the flame remains, a beacon marking the way for others who climb. Another group of people passes us going down, moving carefully in the darkness. They nod as they pass, their faces peaceful, their movements unhurried. One of them is an elderly woman, supported gently by a younger person on each side, perhaps her children, perhaps grandchildren. She has made the climb, this elder, to see what can be seen, to participate in whatever ritual or observation brought her here. And now she descends, satisfied, her evening's purpose fulfilled. There is something deeply moving in this simple act, in the care shown by her companions, in her own determination to make this ascent despite the challenge it must represent for her aged body. We climb to the third terrace, and here the perspective shifts dramatically. We are now higher than any structure in the city except the building that crowns the summit above us. The view encompasses not just Cahokia but the entire floodplain, extending for miles in every direction. To the east, the bluffs rise dark against the horizon, their forested slopes a deeper black against the star-scattered sky. To the west, the land is flatter, stretching away toward distant rises we cannot see but know are there. The city below is revealed in its full extent, far larger than we realized when walking through it. The fires marking homes and neighborhoods extend outward in all directions, creating a map of habitation that must encompass thousands of people. We can see the smaller mounds that dot the landscape, each one a center of its own neighborhood or ceremonial area. We can see the palisade walls that encircle the central city, their wooden posts standing in long lines, defining sacred space, creating boundary and protection. And we can see, too, the fields beyond the city, vast stretches of cultivated land that feed all these people, that make this dense habitation possible. Even in darkness, we can sense their presence, the organized transformation of wild prairie into productive agriculture. Corn, beans, squash, the three sisters growing in their ancient partnership, each supporting the others, together creating abundance. The wind is stronger here, unobstructed by structures or trees. It moves across the open terrace with a sound like breathing, like the slow inhalation and exhalation of the earth itself. It is cooler too, carrying the night's chill, and we are grateful for it after the climb. The breeze dries the slight dampness of effort from our skin and clears our minds, sharpening our awareness of this moment, this place, this extraordinary vantage point. Above us, the final terrace and its crowning structure wait. But we pause here, reluctant to rush, wanting to absorb what can be absorbed from this height, from this perspective that few achieve, that requires effort and intention to reach. There is something profoundly moving about seeing the work of human hands laid out below us in such vast scope. All those homes and hearths, all those workshops and storage buildings, all those pathways and plazas and mounds. Thousands upon thousands of hours of labor, of planning, of collective vision and coordinated effort. This is what humans can achieve when they work together, when they share a common purpose, when they build not just for themselves but for their children and their children's children. The river continues its eternal flow to the south, carrying stories we will never know, connecting this place to the Gulf and the sea, to the whole vast watershed that drains the heart of the continent. How many generations have lived along its banks? How many more will come after this city has returned to grass and silence? The river knows, or would know if rivers could know, if knowledge were something that existed in water and current and the slow wearing away of stone. Time feels different here, at this elevation, in this darkness. It is as if we have stepped outside the normal flow of hours and days, as if we stand in a place where past and future meet and merge. The builders who first raised this mound are gone now, their bodies return to earth, but their work remains. The people who will live here in years to come are not yet born, but they will walk these same pathways, will see these same vistas, will feel this same wind. And we are here, now, in this suspended moment that connects all moments, that is both fleeting and eternal. A shooting star streaks across the northern sky, brief and brilliant, and then is gone. Several people in the plaza below cry out, having seen it, their voices rising in wonder or excitement. Such moments, the sudden brightness appearing in darkness, the flash of something extraordinary against the ordinary backdrop of night, remind us of how much we do not control, how much simply happens around us, regardless of our intentions or desires. We are witnesses here, participants in something far larger than ourselves. We could continue to the summit, could see what structures stand there, what activities unfold at the very top of this great earthwork. But something tells us to descend now, to return to the city below, to move among the people rather than above them. There is wisdom in both perspectives, the elevated view that reveals pattern and connection, and the ground-level experience of individual lives being lived. We have had the former. Now we seek the latter. The descent is easier than the climb, though requiring its own kind of attention. We must watch our footing, must feel for the pathway in darkness, must trust that the builders made this well, that it will hold us as it has held so many others. Our steps are measured, careful, and there is something meditative in this downward journey, this returning to the level of everyday life after glimpsing its larger patterns. As we descend, the sounds of the plaza grow louder again, more distinct. We can hear individual voices now, can pick out the words of the songs still being sung near the central fires. The music has shifted, the flute has fallen silent, but the drum continues, joined now by rattles and what might be a clay whistle, creating a rhythm that is both grounded and light, both of the earth and of the air. We pass again the second terrace, the first terrace, and finally step back onto the level ground of the plaza. The transition feels significant, as if we are crossing a threshold, returning from one kind of experience to another. The moon has climbed higher in its arc, and its light illuminates the plaza more fully now, creating long shadows from every mound and structure, painting the packed earth in shades of pearl and charcoal. The people gathered around the fires welcome us back with their presence, though no words are spoken. We are simply here again, among them, part of the community gathered in this sacred space on this particular night. The evening has deepened into true night now, and the activities around us reflect that transition. Less movement, more stillness. Less conversation, more quiet contemplation. Less doing, more being. We move away from the base of Monk's Mound, walking back across the plaza toward the neighborhoods beyond. Behind us, the great earthwork rises against the stars, patient and permanent, a testament to what humans can create when they dream together, when they commit to something larger than any individual life, when they build for the ages. The city waits ahead, its fires glowing warm and welcoming, its pathways leading into darkness and discovery. The night is still young, and there is much to experience, much to witness, much to understand about this place and the people who have made it their home. We walk forward, carrying with us the memory of height and perspective, of wind and distance and the long view of things. But we walk too, toward the intimate and immediate, toward the small fires and quiet voices, toward the lived experience of a single night in Cahokia, when the city breathes and dreams beneath the stars. Chapter 6. The Fire's Circle. We move through the plaza toward a gathering that has grown larger in the time we spent on the mound. Perhaps 40 people now sit and stand in a loose circle around one of the central fires, and the light from the flames reaches upward to illuminate their faces in warm, flickering gold. The fire itself has been carefully built, not a wild blaze but a controlled burn, the logs arranged to create steady heat and light without excessive smoke. Someone tends it with attention, occasionally adjusting a piece of wood, ensuring that the flames remain constant and strong. The drum we heard earlier is here, and we can see it now, a large instrument made from a hollowed section of log, its top covered with hide stretched taut and secured with sinew. The drummer sits cross-legged beside it, and his hands move in patterns that are both complex and deeply felt, striking the hide with his palms, his fingers, the sides of his hands, each contact producing a different tone, a different voice from the drum's single surface. The rhythm is not fast, but neither is it simple. It circles and repeats, building on itself, creating layers of sound that seem to breathe, to pulse with something alive. Beside him, a woman shakes a rattle made from a turtle shell, small stones or seeds within it creating a sound like rain, like wind through dry leaves. She moves the rattle in time with the drum, sometimes echoing its rhythm exactly, sometimes creating counterpoint, filling the spaces between the drum's deeper tones with her lighter, quicker sound. Her eyes are closed as she plays, and her body sways slightly, responding to the music she helps create. Others have joined with their own instruments. A man plays a wooden flute, its tone warm and breathy, weaving a melody above the rhythm section. Another holds what appears to be a rasp, a notched stick that he scrapes with a bone, producing a rasping, percussive sound that adds texture to the whole. A young woman has small bells attached to a strap around her ankle, and as she moves, not quite dancing but swaying, stepping in place, the bells create a delicate chiming that floats through the deeper sounds like stars scattered through darkness. The music they make together is hypnotic but not overwhelming. It creates a space that invites participation or observation equally, that welcomes those who wish to join and respects those who prefer to witness. There is no performance here, no audience and performers, only people making music together, creating something that serves the community, that marks this time and place as sacred, as set apart from the ordinary hours of work and sleep. Several people begin to move in response to the music, rising from where they sit and stepping into the space between the fire and the musicians. Their movement is not the wild dancing of celebration but something slower, more deliberate, a kind of walking meditation to rhythm, a physical prayer. They move in a loose circle around the fire, their steps matching the drum's pulse, their bodies upright and dignified. Some hold their arms slightly away from their sides, palms open and facing downward toward the earth. Others keep their hands clasped before them. Each person moves in their own way, but all are part of the same motion, the same circuit around the flame. An older man joins the circle, his movements economical and precise. He has danced this way many times before, we can see. His body knows the steps without thinking, responds to the rhythm as naturally as breathing. Behind him, a young girl follows, perhaps 10 years old, watching his feet, learning the pattern. She is serious in her concentration, wanting to get it right, and when she stumbles slightly, she quickly recovers, her face determined. The old man senses her presence behind him and slows his pace slightly, making the steps clearer, teaching without words, through simple demonstration and patience. More people join, men and women, young and old, until perhaps 15 are moving in the circle. The firelight catches them as they pass, illuminating faces briefly before they step back into relative shadow. We can see concentration on some faces, peace on others, something like joy or release on still others. Each person has brought their own intention to this movement, their own prayers or thoughts or simple presence, and the circle contains all of it without judgment, without hierarchy. A woman begins to sing, her voice rising above the instruments, not loudly, but clearly enough to be heard. The language is unknown to us, but the melody carries meaning beyond words, something in its rise and fall that speaks of longing and fulfillment, of questions asked and answered. Others join her, some singing the same melody, others creating harmony above or below it. The voices weave together like threads in fabric, each distinct but contributing to a single whole. We find a place to sit at the edge of the circle, settling onto the packed earth. From here we can see everything: the musicians focused on their instruments, the dancers moving in their circuit, the watchers sitting quietly around the fire's perimeter. The heat reaches us in waves, warm and welcome against the night's increasing coolness. The smoke rises vertically, carrying with it the sharp, clean scent of burning wood, and occasionally a spark lifts with it, floating upward like a tiny star before winking out. The music continues, and time seems to stretch and bend around it. It is impossible to say whether we have been sitting here for minutes or hours. The rhythm creates its own time, its own measure of passing moments. The moon climbs higher in its arc. The stars wheel slowly overhead. The fire burns and is fed, burns and is fed again. And the circle moves, patient and eternal, creating and recreating itself with each circuit around the flames. A young mother sits near us, a baby drowsing against her shoulder. The child's eyes are half closed, heavy with sleep, but the mother sways gently in time with the music, keeping her little one connected to this gathering even as sleep pulls at them both. The baby's small hand opens and closes, fingers flexing, perhaps reaching toward the fire's light or simply responding to some internal dream. The mother hums along with the singers, her voice so quiet it is almost inaudible, more vibration than sound, and the baby settles deeper into sleep against her warmth. Two elders sit together on a woven mat, their shoulders touching companionably. They do not speak, do not need to, their long friendship evident in the comfort of their silence, in the way they simply share this experience without commentary or analysis. One of them taps a foot in time with a drum, while the other sits perfectly still, hands resting on knees, face turned toward the fire with an expression of deep contentment. The dancing circle has expanded now to include perhaps 20 people, and their movement has taken on a kind of collective grace, a synchronized flow that speaks of many bodies moving with shared purpose. As they circle the fire, their shadows stretch long across the plaza, dark figures that dance and merge and separate in the unsteady light. The pattern they create is ancient, human circling fire, creating community through shared movement, marking time and season and transition through the simple act of walking together in rhythm. The flute player changes his melody, moving to something slightly faster, and the drum responds, the rhythm quickening just a degree. The dancers adjust naturally, their steps coming quicker but maintaining the same dignity, the same groundedness. The bells on the young woman's ankle chime faster, creating a cascade of sound that sparkles through the deeper tones like water over stones. A man stands from where he has been sitting and walks to the fire, carrying a bundle of sage. He holds it to the flames until it catches, then blows out the flame, leaving the sage smoldering. Smoke rises from it, thick and fragrant, and he walks slowly around the circle of dancers, letting the smoke drift over them, cleansing, blessing, sanctifying. The dancers pass through the smoke willingly, some even pausing to let it envelop them more fully. The scent of sage joins the wood smoke, sharp and medicinal, clearing the air, clearing the mind. Gradually, organically, the music begins to slow. The drum settles into a simpler pattern, less complex, more like a heartbeat than a conversation. The flute's melody becomes more sparse, leaving longer silences between phrases. The singing voices drop to a hum, a droning tone that seems to come from deep in the chest, from the earth itself. The dancers slow their circuit, their steps becoming longer, more measured, until finally, one by one, they step out of the circle and return to sitting, their movement completed, their offering made. The music continues, but quieter now, gentler. The fire burns lower, needing no more fuel added. The gathering begins to disperse naturally, people rising and moving off into the darkness in ones and twos, heading toward their homes, their evening's purpose fulfilled. There is no formal ending, no announcement or conclusion, simply a natural winding down, a collective sense that this particular gathering has reached its completion. We rise as well, feeling the stiffness in our legs from sitting, the pleasant warmth still on our faces from the fire. The musicians continue playing, though softer now, perhaps for themselves as much as for any remaining listeners. The drum beats on, steady and sure, and the rattle accompanies it, rain on a roof, wind in branches. We move away from the circle, walking back across the plaza toward the neighborhoods we passed through earlier. Behind us, the fire glows warm against the night, and the music follows us for a while, growing fainter as we walk but never entirely disappearing, remaining as a kind of echo in the air, in our memory, in the bones of this place. The plaza is quieter now than when we first crossed it. Most of the smaller fires have burned low, and the groups that gathered around them have dispersed. A few people still move through the space, late returners heading home, night workers beginning tasks that are better done in darkness and coolness, watchers who prefer the night hours for their own reasons. We pass beneath the shadow of a smaller mound, and the temperature drops noticeably. The earth has not yet released all the warmth it gathered during the day, but it will, slowly, throughout the night, giving back to the air what the sun gave to it. A bat swoops overhead, visible for a moment against the stars, hunting insects that have risen in the darkness. Its flight is erratic, quick, utterly unlike the measured movements of daytime birds. The neighborhoods ahead are quieter now than when we passed through them earlier. Most hearth fires have burned to coals. Most doorways show no light within. The day's work is done, the evening meal eaten, the social time complete. Now is the time for sleep, for rest, for the body's restoration. But not everyone sleeps. There are always those whose work happens at night, whose temperament suits these darker hours, who keep watch while others dream. We walk through streets that are familiar now, past workshops we saw preparing for evening, past homes where we glimpsed families gathering. Everything is transformed by darkness and quietness, made somehow more intimate, more peaceful. A dog lies in a doorway, lifting its head to watch us pass, then settling back down, satisfied that we mean no harm. From within one dwelling, we hear the soft murmur of voices, someone telling a story perhaps, or a parent soothing a restless child, or elders sharing memories before sleep. The music from the plaza is almost inaudible now, just the faintest suggestion of rhythm carried on the wind. But we carry it with us anyway, that pulse that connected so many people in shared experience, that marked this evening as special, as sacred, as time set apart. Ahead, the outer edges of the city wait, the quieter places, the margins where city blends into countryside, where the concentrated life of Cahokia dissolves gradually into the broader landscape. The night is far from over, and there is still much to see, much to experience in these hours when most sleep but the world remains awake, breathing, living, continuing its ancient patterns beneath the wheeling stars. We walk on, our footsteps soft on the packed earth, moving from the heart of community outward toward the edges, toward the quiet places, toward the threshold between human habitation and the wild night beyond. Chapter 7. The Living Edge. We walk now toward the perimeter of the city, where the density of structures begins to thin, where the carefully maintained pathways give way to trails worn by feet and hooves, where the boundary between human habitation and the wild world becomes porous and permeable. The air here carries different scents, less wood smoke and cooked food, more earth and water, more the green smell of living things growing without human intention or guidance. The sound of the river grows stronger as we move westward. We cannot yet see it through the darkness, but we can hear it clearly now, the constant murmur of water moving over its bed, the occasional splash of something breaking the surface, the liquid whisper of current against banks. It is a sound that has been here forever, will be here forever, a voice older than any human language, speaking in the tongue of flow and gravity, of endless journey from source to sea. We pass the last cluster of homes, their inhabitants asleep or sitting quietly within, the day's work complete and tomorrow's not yet begun. Beyond them, gardens sprawl in the darkness, larger plots than those we saw earlier, places where cultivation happens on a scale meant to feed many. Even in starlight, we can make out the ordered rows of corn stubble, the sprawling mounds where squash vines grow, the poles where beans climbed earlier in the season. These fields are empty now of human presence, given over to the night and to the creatures who find shelter here. A rustle in the corn stubble announces the passage of something small, a mouse perhaps, or a vole, making its nocturnal rounds, gathering seeds missed by the harvest, living its brief, intense life in the margins between human cultivation and wild prairie. We pause, listening, and hear the tiny footsteps moving away, the soft displacement of dried leaves. Somewhere overhead, an owl calls, a long, questioning hoot that hangs in the air and then fades. We do not see the bird, but we know it is there, perched on some branch or post, scanning the fields below with eyes that transform starlight into vision, hunting by sound and shadow. The ground beneath our feet changes texture again, becoming less compacted, more yielding. Grasses grow here, wild species that have not been cleared for planting. Big bluestem and Indian grass, their seed heads dried now and rustling in the breeze. They stand as tall as our shoulders in places, creating corridors through which we walk, the stems brushing against us with a sound like whispered conversation. And now we can truly hear the chorus of night, the insects that have been singing all along but which were muted by distance and human activity. Crickets dominate, thousands of them, perhaps millions, each one rubbing its wings together to create that familiar chirping pulse. The sound is not uniform but wave-like, swelling and diminishing, creating patterns of louder and softer that seem to breathe across the landscape. It is a sound so familiar that it often goes unnoticed, yet when we truly listen, it is extraordinary. Countless individual voices merging into a single vast expression of life continuing in darkness. Katydids join the chorus, their rasping calls cutting through the cricket's smoother tones. They call their own names endlessly. Katydid, 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 a summer sound stretching into autumn, marking the warm nights that will soon give way to frost and silence. Some nights they seem to answer each other, call and response spreading through the trees and grasses like a conversation in code, like a language we can hear but never quite understand. We move closer to the river, and a new sound layer emerges, the frogs. They are concentrated in the wetlands that border the water, in the oxbow lakes and marshy backwaters where cattails grow thick and water moves slowly if at all. The sound they create is almost overwhelming in its complexity and volume. There are deep-voiced bullfrogs, their calls resonant and far-carrying, spaced seconds apart like the striking of some great bass drum. There are smaller frogs whose calls are chirps and trills and clicking sounds, creating a background of constant activity that rises and falls but never entirely ceases. These wetlands are essential to Cahokia. They provide fish and waterfowl, cattail roots and wild rice, cordage materials and thatching materials, and countless other gifts. But more than that, they are alive in their own right, teeming with creatures who care nothing for human purposes, who live and breed and die in their own cycles, their own rhythms. The city exists beside this wildness, draws from it, but does not entirely tame it. There is a kind of wisdom in that, a recognition that some places belong to themselves, that not everything can or should be controlled. We find a slight rise where the ground stays dry, and we sit, listening, letting the night's full chorus wash over us. To our left, back toward the city, we can still see the glow of fires, the warm points of light that mark human presence. To our right, the river reflects the moon, a broad silver pathway cutting through the darkness. And all around us, the living world continues its ancient patterns, indifferent to our observation but somehow enriched by it nonetheless. The wind picks up, coming from the south, and it brings with it the scent of distant rain, not close enough to threaten, but somewhere to the south, water is falling, soaking into earth, running into streams that will eventually flow into this river, that will pass this place on their long journey to the Gulf. The wind moves through the grasses with a sound like the ocean, like waves breaking on some distant shore. It bends the seed heads all in one direction, creating visible patterns even in darkness, a flowing motion that seems almost liquid. In the cattails at the water's edge, a night heron calls, a single harsh croak that cuts through the frog chorus. We catch a glimpse of movement, a dark shape against darker water, and then stillness as the bird resumes its patient hunting, standing motionless in the shallows, waiting for the telltale movement of prey. These birds are masters of patience, capable of standing immobile for minutes or hours, conserving energy, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. A muskrat swims past, visible as a V-shaped wake on the water's surface, moving purposefully from one patch of vegetation to another. These industrious creatures are constantly active, building and maintaining their lodges, gathering food, traveling their underwater highways beneath the ice that will come with winter. They are part of the marsh's economy, their feeding creating openings in dense vegetation that other creatures will use, their lodges providing nesting sites for ducks and geese. The cricket song shifts slightly, a subtle change in tempo or pitch that we feel more than hear. Perhaps the night has grown slightly cooler, affecting their metabolism, the speed of their wing rubbing. Or perhaps it is simply the natural variation in their chorus, the way that living systems pulse and fluctuate, never quite maintaining perfect steadiness. There is comfort in this variability, in the way nature resists exact repetition, creates instead something that is similar but never identical, pattern but not rigidity. Far out on the river, we hear the splash of a large fish, a sturgeon perhaps, or a massive catfish, rising to the surface for reasons known only to itself. The sound carries clearly across the water, and then silence returns, or rather the continuous sound of current and waves returns, having never truly left. These huge fish have been here for millions of years, far longer than humans, and they will likely outlast us as well, patient and ancient, moving through the river's depths like slow thoughts, like memories of the world before cities, before agriculture, before consciousness itself. A breeze carries the scent of willow, sharp and green, the smell of life sustained by water, of roots reaching deep into saturated soil, of leaves transpiring moisture back into the air. Willows grow thick along the river banks here, their branches trailing into the water, creating shelter for fish and nesting sites for birds, their roots holding the soil against the river's erosive power. They are pioneer species, quick to colonize new ground, tolerant of flooding, flexible in the face of current and storm. We notice now the contrast between two kinds of sound, the biological chorus of frogs and insects and birds, and the physical sounds of wind and water. Both are essential to the night's composition. Both create the acoustic environment in which we sit. The biological sounds are, in a sense, voluntary. Each cricket chooses to sing, each frog calls with intention, even if that intention is purely instinctive. The physical sounds simply happen, the inevitable result of air moving over earth, water flowing downhill. Together they create something that is neither purely alive nor purely mechanical, but rather a blending of the two, the way the world actually is when we pay attention. Never entirely one thing, always a mixing and merging of categories we create but which nature does not recognize. Behind us, a coyote calls, a rising howl that starts low and climbs higher, holding a note before dropping away into silence. It is answered from a different direction, then another, until we realize we are hearing a small family group announcing their presence, their territory, their unity. The sound is eerie but not threatening, wild but not dangerous. These hunters move through the edges of human habitation, taking mice and rabbits, occasionally cleaning up waste, serving as the night sanitation crew while earning the fear and respect of those who do not understand their role. The howling fades, and the frog chorus seems louder in its absence, or perhaps we simply notice it more keenly, the way one sound can mask another until its removal makes what remains more vivid. A bat swoops low over the water, so close we hear the soft flutter of its wings, and then it climbs back into darkness, its echolocation guiding it toward insects invisible to our eyes. We sit for a long time, letting the night's rhythms sink into our awareness. There is no hurry here, no schedule to keep. The darkness will last for hours yet, and there is wisdom in stillness, in simply being present to what is, without analysis or interpretation, without the constant need to process and categorize and explain. Eventually, though, we rise, brushing dried grass from our clothing, turning back toward the city. The fires still glow in the distance, warm and welcoming, calling us back toward human company, toward the comfort of hearths and walls. But we carry with us now this experience of the edge, of the place where cultivation gives way to wilderness, where human intention meets the world's own logic, where two kinds of life, the civilized and the wild, exist not in opposition but in relationship, each influencing the other, each depending on the other in ways both obvious and subtle. We walk back through the fields, through the gardens, past the sleeping homes at the city's edge. The night chorus continues behind us, undiminished by our departure. The river flows on, patient and eternal. The wind moves through the grasses, creating patterns that no one sees but which exist nonetheless, beautiful in their transience, their moment-to-moment arising and dissolving. Ahead, the neighborhoods wait, the quieter streets and smaller fires, the places where people sleep and dream while the watchful few remain awake, tending flames, thinking thoughts, keeping vigil through these darkest hours. The stars wheel overhead in their slow procession, the moon climbs toward its zenith, and beneath it all, Cahokia rests, breathing, dreaming, contained within the larger dreaming of river and prairie, of the great living system that makes all human life possible. We step from grass onto packed earth, from wild margin into cultivated center, carrying with us the memory of wilderness, the sound of frogs and crickets, the scent of river and willow. The transition is gentle, as all transitions are here. No walls or gates, no clear division, only a gradual shifting from one state to another, from one way of being to another, all of it part of a single whole, a single story being told in earth and water, in fire and starlight, in the endless conversation between human aspiration and the world's patient, persistent life. Chapter 8. The hours of rest. The neighborhoods are quieter now than at any time since we arrived. The moon has reached its highest point, bathing everything in a cool, silver light that transforms the familiar into something dreamlike, something caught between waking and sleep. The homes we pass are mostly dark, their inhabitants deep in slumber, but here and there, a faint glow seeps through doorways or walls, not the bright light of active hearths but the subdued ember glow of fires banked for the night, kept alive but contained, ready to be revived with the morning's first stirring. We move slowly through these streets, our footsteps soft, respectful of the sleeping city. The packed earth beneath us is cool now, having released the day's accumulated warmth into the night air. Our breath is visible in the moonlight, small clouds that appear and dissolve, marking our passage through the stillness. A dog emerges from shadow, pausing to consider us with calm assessment. It is the same animal we saw earlier, or perhaps another of similar build and temperament. Lean, alert, but not aggressive. After a moment, satisfied that we belong here, that we are part of the night's rightful traffic, it continues on its way, trotting purposefully towards some destination known only to itself. Its shadow stretches long in the moonlight, and we watch it disappear around the corner of a storage shed, guardian of these hours when humans sleep. From one dwelling, we hear the sound of breathing, not individual breaths but the collective respiration of a family sleeping together, their breathing synchronized in the way that happens when people share space over time, when bodies attune to each other's rhythms. It is a peaceful sound, deeply human, speaking of safety and rest, of the trust required to surrender consciousness in each other's presence. Another home shows a sliver of light beneath its high door covering, and from within comes the murmur of voices, too quiet to make out words, but the tone is unmistakable. Two people are talking, perhaps unable to sleep, perhaps keeping watch for some reason, perhaps simply sharing the intimacy of late-night conversation when the world is quiet and words can flow more easily. There is something about the deep night that loosens tongues, that allows for confidences and reflections that daylight somehow prohibits. We do not linger to listen. Such conversations are private, sacred in their own way, but we acknowledge their existence, the knowledge that while most sleep, some remain awake, thinking, feeling, being. We pass a home where a baby fusses softly, and we hear the immediate response, a mother's voice, wordless and soothing, humming a melody that is probably as old as motherhood itself. The baby's crying diminishes, gentles, stops. The humming continues for a while longer, ensuring that sleep has truly returned, and then it too fades into silence. This exchange, played out countless times across countless nights throughout human history, never loses its power to move us. The offering of comfort, the acceptance of it, the return to peace. The moonlight creates stark patterns of light and shadow, transforming the ordinary geometry of walls and roofs into something abstract, almost geometric. A doorway becomes a dark rectangle of perfect blackness. A roof's edge cuts a sharp line against the star-scattered sky. The shadows of wooden posts stretch across pathways like dark rivers, and we step over them as if they were real obstacles, as if shadow could impede passage. In a small courtyard shared by several homes, someone has left a pot sitting on stones near a fire pit. The coals within the pit are nearly dead, just the faintest red glow visible when the breeze stirs the ash. But the pot remains, and we can smell what it contains, some kind of stew or porridge, kept warm through the night for someone who works late or rises early, who will need sustenance at an hour when no one else is awake to prepare it. This small act of foresight and care speaks volumes about the way people look after each other here, the way they anticipate needs and meet them without fanfare or expectation of recognition. We come to a slightly larger structure, different from the residential homes, perhaps a meeting house or ceremonial building for this particular neighborhood. Its entrance faces east, toward the coming dawn still hours away, and near the entrance, a small fire burns in a stone-lined pit. An elderly man sits beside it, wrapped in a heavy blanket despite the season's warmth, feeding small sticks to the flames. He is a keeper of fire, perhaps, maintaining this particular flame through the night for reasons that are ceremonial or practical or both. He notices our approach and nods in greeting, but does not speak. We return the nod and pause at a respectful distance, warming ourselves briefly by his fire. His face is deeply lined, weathered by decades of sun and wind, and his eyes reflect the firelight with a brightness that speaks of clarity, of awareness maintained through these quiet hours. How many nights has he sat like this, keeping watch, keeping fire, being present while others sleep? His vigil is a gift to the community, though they sleep and do not know he gives it. After a moment, we move on, and the old firekeeper returns his attention to his flames, selecting another small branch from the pile beside him, placing it carefully where it will catch and burn most efficiently. Behind us, the fire continues its small, brave burning against the vast darkness, a point of warmth and light maintained by human attention, by choice, by the willingness to stay awake and watchful. The streets curve and intersect, following patterns that respect both the natural contours of land and the social structures of the community. Some pathways are wider, clearly main routes, while others are narrow, intimate passages between homes whose inhabitants know each other well, who share daily life in ways that create bonds deeper than blood. We choose the smaller paths, moving through the neighborhood's interior, seeing it from within rather than from its more public edges. A cat crosses our path, moving with that peculiar feline grace that makes them seem to flow rather than walk. It pauses to study us with luminous eyes that catch the moonlight and throw it back in shades of green and gold. Then, deciding we are of no interest, it continues its hunting rounds, stalking through shadows in search of mice or other small prey. These cats are both wild and domestic, belonging to themselves but tolerating human presence, earning their keep as pest controllers while maintaining their essential independence. We pass a workshop we saw earlier, the potter's compound. In daylight it was busy with activity, but now it is still, the racks of drying pottery standing silent in the moonlight like an army of vessels, each one waiting for its completion, for the fire that will transform soft clay into hard ceramic, potential into actuality. The moonlight catches the curved surfaces of bowls and jars, creating highlights and shadows that emphasize their forms, their elegant functionality. Near the workshop, someone has created a small garden of herbs. We can smell them even before we see them, their scents released by the coolness of night. There is sage, its leaves silver in the moonlight, and what might be mint or be balm, and something with a sharp, medicinal scent we cannot identify. These plants serve multiple purposes: flavoring food, treating ailments, creating smoke for ceremonies. They are tended with care, watered and weeded, their gifts accepted with gratitude. A breeze moves through the neighborhood, and wind chimes hanging from a roof beam respond with gentle tones, pieces of shell or bone suspended on cordage, clicking against each other, creating music that is random yet somehow ordered, chaotic yet pleasant. The sound is brief, lasting only as long as the breeze that caused it, and then stillness returns, or rather the deeper sounds return, the distant chorus of frogs and crickets, the ever-present murmur of the river, the breathing of the sleeping city. We come to a small shrine built at the intersection of two pathways, a simple structure, barely more than a shelf attached to a post, but clearly significant. Upon it rest various offerings: a perfect bird's feather, striped in black and white, a small clay figurine of what might be a bear or perhaps a person in a bear costume, a bowl containing cornmeal, a bundle of dried flowers. These items have been placed here with intention, left for the spirits or ancestors or whatever forces the people believe deserve acknowledgement and gift. The shrine is well maintained, the area around it swept clean, suggesting that it receives regular attention, that it is part of the neighborhood's spiritual geography, a recognized and respected presence. We stand before it for a moment, not in worship. We are visitors here, observers, but in respect for the impulse it represents, the human need to mark certain places as special, to create physical manifestations of invisible beliefs, to bridge the gap between the material world and whatever lies beyond it. Moving on, we enter an area where the homes are slightly larger, perhaps belonging to families with more members or higher status, or simply those who have been here longer and have had time to expand and improve their dwellings. The construction shows additional refinements: more elaborate thatching on the roofs, decorative elements carved into doorposts, carefully maintained pathways bordered with stones. From one of these homes comes the sound of snoring, deep, resonant, rhythmic. It is almost musical in its consistency, and there is something oddly comforting about it, this evidence of profound sleep, of rest so complete that the sleeper has lost all self-consciousness, all control over the sounds their body makes. Somewhere in that dwelling, a person is thoroughly, absolutely at peace, traveling through dreams we can never know. The moon is beginning its descent now, moving toward the western horizon, though it will be hours yet before it sets. The quality of its light remains steady, cool, clear, revealing without judging, illuminating without warming. Under its gaze, the neighborhood takes on an almost timeless quality, as if we could be walking through Cahokia of any era, any century, as if the specificities of time have dissolved into something more essential, more permanent. We turn onto a wider path that will lead us back toward the central areas, toward the mounds and plazas. The outer neighborhoods have shared their quiet secrets with us, the sleeping families, the kept fires, the night watchers, the small shrines and careful gardens. We have witnessed domestic peace, the resting hours when the day's labor is forgotten and the body repairs itself, when dreams come and go unremembered, when the living pause in their constant striving and simply exist, breathing in darkness, held by sleep's gentle hand. As we walk toward the city's center, the homes grow gradually closer together again, the neighborhoods more dense. Here and there we see evidence of late-night activity, a person carrying water, another checking on livestock penned near their home, a group of young people talking in whispers, reluctant to let the night end, holding on to these hours of freedom from daytime's responsibilities. The mounds begin to reappear ahead of us, their dark shapes rising against the star field, patient monuments that stand watch over the sleeping city. Monk's Mound is visible once more, massive and eternal, its summit now dark. Whatever activity took place there earlier has concluded, and it stands empty under the moon, waiting for dawn, for the next cycle of human use and reverence. We carry with us the peace of the neighborhoods, the sense of a community at rest, of thousands of individuals sleeping under the same sky, sharing the same night, connected by proximity and purpose and the simple fact of dwelling together in this place. Their dreams are their own, private and unknowable, but their sleeping presence creates a kind of collective peace, a shared vulnerability that requires trust. Trust in each other, in the city's protection, in the basic rightness of the world and their place in it. The path widens, and we find ourselves once again approaching the open ground of the Grand Plaza, that vast clearing at the heart of Cahokia where the sacred and the communal meet, where individual lives intersect with collective purpose, where earth reaches towards sky and humans attempt to bridge the distance between them. The night is deep now, the deepest hours before dawn's first hint, and in this darkness, the city rests and dreams, gathering strength for the day to come, for the endless round of work and celebration, of struggle and achievement, of life lived together in all its complexity and simplicity, its sorrow and its joy. Chapter 9. The Depth of Hours. We stand once more at the edge of the Grand Plaza, and it is transformed from when we first crossed it. The fires have burned to embers now, small glowing points scattered across the open ground like earthbound stars. The people who gathered here have long since returned to their homes, and the plaza rests empty under the wheeling sky. Empty, yet somehow full, charged with the memory of all those who have stood here, who will stand here, who stand here now in this singular moment that is both fleeting and eternal. The silence is profound, but not complete. The river continues its ancient conversation with its banks. The frogs and crickets maintain their chorus, though perhaps quieter now, as if even they acknowledge the deep night's particular quality. The wind moves across the open ground, unimpeded, carrying with it the mingled sense of water and earth, of smoke and growing things, of time itself if time had a scent, something like dust, like memory, like the slow accumulation of seasons. We walk slowly toward the center of the plaza, and each step feels significant somehow, as if we are walking not just across packed earth but across layers of time, through the accumulated moments of all those who have made this same journey. How many feet have crossed this ground? How many hearts have beaten in chests standing where we stand? The numbers are beyond reckoning, and yet each individual instance was unique, unrepeatable. Each person who walked here brought their own hopes and fears, their own joys and sorrows, their own particular way of being human in this particular place. The moon hangs in the western sky now, still bright but descending, and its light creates a landscape of silver and shadow, revealing and concealing in equal measure. The mounds rise around us like the edges of a great bowl, and we are at its center, at the place where all lines converge, where the city's geometry finds its focus. There is something intentional about this feeling, something designed. The builders of Cahokia understood space and perspective, understood how placement and proportion could create emotional and spiritual effects, could make a person feel small or large, isolated or connected, depending on where they stood and what surrounded them. We find a place to sit, settling onto the cool earth, and we look upward. The stars are extraordinary tonight. Countless points of light scattered across the dome of heaven in patterns that have guided travelers and inspired storytellers for as long as humans have possessed language. The Milky Way stretches overhead, that great river of stars flowing from one horizon to another, and we can understand why ancient peoples might have seen it as a path, as a road leading somewhere, leading home perhaps, or leading to whatever lies beyond the boundary of life. These are the same stars that shone on the builders when they first imagined this place, when they stood on open prairie and envisioned mounds rising, plazas opening, a city growing where before there was only grassland and scattered settlements. The stars have not changed, will not change in any span of time that matters to human concerns. They are the constants against which all earthly change is measured, the fixed points that allow us to know we are moving, that time is passing, that nothing except those distant lights remains the same from one generation to the next. And yet, the patterns we see in them, the constellations, the stories we tell about their arrangements, these change with culture and time. The people of Cahokia saw different shapes in these stars than we do, told different stories about them, used them to mark different seasons and ceremonies. The stars themselves are indifferent to our interpretations, but we are not indifferent to them. We need them, need their constancy and their distance, need something that exists beyond our small lives, our brief spans of consciousness between birth and death. There is comfort in this continuity, in knowing that these same stars have witnessed the rise and fall of countless cities, countless civilizations, countless individual lives lived with the same intensity and significance that we bring to our own. We are not the first to sit beneath this sky and wonder about our place in the vastness. We will not be the last. The wondering itself is part of what makes us human, part of what has always made us human. This capacity to look beyond the immediate, to ask questions that have no final answers, to seek meaning in a universe that may or may not contain it. Cahokia exists in time, bounded by its beginning and its eventual end, but it also exists outside of time, in the realm of human achievement and aspiration that transcends any particular moment. The mounds will outlast the people who built them, will stand for centuries after the last inhabitant has departed, and even when they finally erode back into the plane from which they rose, they will leave traces, markers, evidence that humans were here, that we created something larger than ourselves, something meant to endure. This is what we do, we humans. We build. We create. We take the raw materials of the world, earth and wood, stone and fiber, and we shape them according to visions that exist first only in imagination. We impose order on chaos, create meaning where before there was only matter. And we do this not just individually but collectively, pooling our labor and our creativity, working together toward goals that no single person could achieve alone. The community sleeping around us now represents that collective power. Each person contributes their particular skills and knowledge, their strength and ingenuity, and together they maintain the city, keep it functioning, pass its traditions and technologies to the next generation. No one person knows everything required to sustain Cahokia. The knowledge is distributed, specialized, held in many minds and many hands. The potter knows clay. The woodworker knows timber. The farmer knows seeds and seasons. The priest knows ceremony. And each depends on all the others, creating a web of interdependence that is both practical and profound. This interdependence extends beyond the human. The city depends on the river for water and transportation, on the forest for timber and game, on the prairie for grass and grazing, on the wetlands for reeds and fish and fowl. Cahokia is not separate from the natural world but embedded within it, drawing sustenance from it, shaped by its constraints and possibilities. The people here have learned to read the land, to understand its rhythms and patterns, to take what they need while allowing the sources of that taking to renew themselves. There is wisdom in this relationship, hard-won over generations of trial and error, of feast and famine, of success and failure. The knowledge of how to live well in this place has been accumulated slowly, passed from parent to child, adjusted and refined with each passing season. It is knowledge written not in books but in practices, in techniques, in stories that encode practical information within memorable narratives. A shooting star streaks across the northern sky, brilliant and brief, and is gone before we can fully register its passage. Such moments, unexpected, ephemeral, beautiful, remind us that the universe is dynamic, that even the seemingly permanent heavens are subject to change and chance. The shooting star was a piece of cosmic debris, perhaps as old as the solar system itself, and it ended its billion-year journey in a brief flash of light above this plaza, witnessed or not, significant or not, depending on whether significance requires a witness or exists independently of observation. We wonder, sometimes, about the relationship between consciousness and meaning. Does the universe mean anything if no one is present to interpret it? Does beauty exist without an eye to perceive it? These are old questions, perhaps unanswerable, but they rise naturally in moments like this, when we sit small beneath immensity, aware of our own awareness, conscious of our consciousness, caught in that peculiar human condition of being both subject and object, both observer and observed. The people of Cahokia, sleeping now in their homes, live lives as rich and complex as our own, though separated from us by centuries. They love and fear, hope and despair, laugh and weep. They form friendships and rivalries, find meaning in their work, take pleasure in simple things, a well-made pot, a meal shared, a child's laughter. Their concerns may differ from ours in specifics, but the underlying human experiences remain constant across time. We are more alike than different, we humans, regardless of when or where we live. This thought brings a kind of comfort, a sense of connection across time's vast gulf. The builder who placed the first basket of earth for Monk's Mound was human like us, with hands and heart and mind like ours. The elder who taught a child to weave or hunt or pray was passing on knowledge just as we pass on knowledge, investing in a future they would not live to see. The mother who comforted a crying infant in the night was enacting the same timeless ritual of care that mothers have always enacted, will always enact, as long as humans exist. We are part of a chain, a continuity, that stretches back to the first humans who looked up at stars and wondered what they were, and forward to whatever humans might become, if we endure long enough to find out. Each generation receives the accumulated wisdom of those who came before, adds its own discoveries and creations, and passes the whole inheritance forward. This is how culture works, how civilization builds, not through the genius of individuals alone, but through the patient accumulation of knowledge across generations, each one standing on the shoulders of all who came before. The plaza is utterly still now. Even the wind has paused, as if holding its breath. The embers of the fires have dimmed to the faintest glow, barely visible. The night has reached its deepest point, the hour when darkness is most complete, when the old day is fully gone and the new day has not yet begun to announce itself. This is the threshold time, the liminal space between one state and another, when the world seems to pause and anything feels possible. In this stillness, we can almost hear it, the heartbeat of the earth itself, the slow pulse of the planet turning in space, carrying us with it through the darkness, bringing us inevitably toward dawn. We cannot stop this motion, cannot hold this moment forever, no matter how peaceful it feels, how perfect. Time moves forward always, relentless and unstoppable, carrying us with it whether we will or no. But in the moving, there is life. In the changing, there is growth. Nothing that lives remains static. To live is to change, to grow, to move through time toward an end that gives meaning to the beginning. The people of Cahokia understand this. They plant seeds knowing that some will fail but trusting that enough will grow to sustain them. They have children knowing the pain that loss can bring but trusting in the continuation of life, the passing forward of the essential spark. We sit in gratitude for this night, for the privilege of witnessing it, of walking through this city as it rests and dreams. We are grateful for the firekeepers who maintain their vigils, for the mothers who comfort children, for the builders who raise these mounds, for the river that flows eternal, for the stars that guide and inspire, for the simple fact of consciousness that allows us to experience all of this, to reflect on it, to find it meaningful. The darkness is complete now, absolute, the deepest it will be before the first hints of dawn begin to pale the eastern sky. The city sleeps. The night holds. And we sit at the center of it all, small and temporary and infinitely precious, alive in this moment, present to the mystery and wonder of existence itself. The stars wheel on in their courses. The river flows toward the sea. The earth turns beneath us, patient and enduring. And Cahokia dreams, gathering strength, preparing to wake and begin again the ancient cycle of work and rest, of building and maintaining, of living together in this place where humans have chosen to make their home, to create their monuments, to live their lives as fully and well as they can manage, given the constraints of mortality and the gifts of community. We breathe in the night air, cool and clean. We breathe out gratitude and peace. And we wait, simply wait, for whatever comes next, content to be here now, in this place, in this moment, alive and aware beneath the eternal stars. Chapter 10. The Quiet Descending. The deepest hour of night has passed, though dawn is still far away. We rise slowly from where we have been sitting, our bodies stiff from stillness, our minds quiet from contemplation. The plaza stretches around us, vast and peaceful, and we begin to walk once more, not toward any particular destination now, but simply moving through the sleeping city one last time, bearing witness to its rest, honoring its peace. Our footsteps are softer than ever, barely disturbing the dust. We move like shadows, like thoughts, like the gentlest breath of wind. The moonlight has dimmed as the moon descends, but the starlight remains, constant and sufficient, guiding our way through the familiar pathways we have walked throughout this long, quiet evening. We pass again through neighborhoods now deeply silent. Every hearth has burned to ash or the faintest ember. Every voice has stilled. The people of Cahokia are in their deepest sleep now, in that hour when dreams are most vivid, when the body completes its healing, when the mind sorts and stores the day's experiences, preparing for the day to come. Children sleep curled against parents. Elders rest, their breathing slow and peaceful. Young people dream of futures they cannot yet imagine but somehow sense waiting for them. The dogs have settled as well, no longer patrolling but resting beside doorways or in the spaces beneath raised storage structures, their vigil complete for now, trusting that the night holds no threats that require their attention. Even they sleep lightly, aware but not anxious, part of the city's collective rest. We walk past the potter's workshop one final time. The vessels stand silent on their racks, still and patient, each one holding within its form the memory of hands that shaped it, the intention of its maker, the purpose it will serve. In morning light, work will resume. New clay will be wedged, new forms thrown, new designs carved. But for now, everything waits in perfect stillness, in the patience that objects have, being outside of time's urgency, existing simply as they are without need or want. The weaver's looms stand empty against the sky, their frames dark lines of geometry, their purpose clear even in their stillness. Tomorrow threads will pass through them again, over and under, creating fabric that will warm and shelter, that will serve and last. But tonight they are simply themselves, wood and cordage, tools at rest, waiting to be tools again when hands return to animate them. We pass the small shrines and offering places, those points where the visible and invisible worlds meet, where humans place their gifts and prayers, their gratitude and petitions. The offerings remain where they were placed, feathers and cornmeal, carved figures and dried flowers, receiving the night's blessing, the star's witness, the simple passage of hours that sanctifies all things through duration, through the patient acceptance of time's flow. The storage structures rise on their posts, holding the community's wealth, the preserved foods that will carry them through winter, the materials that will become next season's clothing and tools and vessels. These reserves represent foresight and cooperation, the willingness to work hard during abundance so that scarcity will not bring suffering. They represent trust as well, trust that what is stored will be shared fairly, that the community will hold together, that tomorrow will come and will be met with adequate provision. We move through an area where children played earlier, their game pieces still scattered in the dirt, abandoned when sleep finally claimed them. A ball made of wrapped leather rests against a wall. Small handprints mark the clay surface of a home's exterior, left there perhaps accidentally or perhaps intentionally, a child's desire to leave a mark, to say, I was here, I existed, I mattered. And they did matter, that child, as all children matter, carrying forward the community's future, being the reason that so much labor and care and teaching happens, so that they might inherit not just objects but knowledge, not just places but belonging. The grand plaza opens before us again, and we cross it one last time, moving slowly, savoring the feeling of open space, of sky unobstructed, of earth that has been cleared and maintained for gathering, for ceremony, for the collective life that makes community more than just a collection of individuals. The plaza is the city's heart, the place where private lives become public, where individual concerns merge into shared purpose. Monk's Mound rises ahead, and we do not climb it again but pass along its base, trailing our hands along its slope, feeling the packed earth, the immense weight of soil lifted and placed by human hands, basket by basket, through seasons and years. The mound is cool beneath our touch, having released the day's warmth into the night air. It is solid, patient, enduring. It will stand here long after everyone now sleeping has returned to earth, after the city itself has been reclaimed by prairie grass, after even the memory of its builders has faded from human knowledge. But it will stand as testament, as evidence, as proof that humans were here and built something lasting, something meaningful, something that reached toward the sky. The smaller mounds punctuate the landscape around us, each one a smaller monument, a lesser reaching upward, but no less significant. They define space, create rhythm, organize the city's flow and function. Together with Monk's Mound, they create a landscape that is both natural and artificial, both earthen and architectural, both of this world and pointing toward whatever lies beyond it. We walk now toward the eastern edge of the city, where the darkness is perhaps beginning to show the very first, barely perceptible hint of thinning, though true dawn is still an hour or more away. The horizon is still fully dark, but there is something in the quality of that darkness that suggests it will not remain so forever, that change is coming, that the earth's turning will inevitably bring light back to this place. But for now, the darkness holds. The city sleeps. And there is beauty in this holding, this sleeping, this temporary surrender to rest and restoration. The people have worked hard, in fields and workshops, at looms and grinding stones, carrying water and wood, tending children and elders, maintaining the complex web of relationships and responsibilities that makes communal life possible. They have earned this rest, and they take it fully, without reservation or anxiety, trusting in the community's strength, in each other's care, in the basic rightness of their world. We find ourselves at the city's edge once more, where cultivation gives way to prairie, where human intention releases its hold and allows the land to be itself. The grasses rustle softly in a breeze that has returned, gentle and warm despite the hour. The river sounds distant from here, but we know it flows on, patient and eternal, carrying its burden of water toward the Gulf, toward the sea, completing its ancient cycle that will begin again with rain and snow, with springs and tributaries, with a slow gathering of water from thousands of miles of watershed. The frog chorus has quieted somewhat, though individual voices still call out occasionally, as if checking that others are still present, still awake, still participating in the night's community. The crickets continue their steady chirping, that sounds so constant it becomes like silence, like the background against which all other sounds are measured. A night bird calls from somewhere in the darkness, not an owl this time but something smaller, gentler, offering its voice to the night not as a hunting cry but as simple expression, simple being. The call rises and falls, melodic and clear, and then stops, and the silence that follows is rich and full, containing rather than empty. We stand at the threshold between city and wildness, between human shaping and nature's own patterns, and we realize that there is no real boundary, no clear line where one ends and the other begins. The city exists within the natural world, depends on it, is shaped by it. And the natural world is shaped by the city as well. The fields alter the land, the harvesting affects animal populations, the very presence of thousands of humans changes the local ecology in ways both subtle and profound. They are not separate, these two realms, but interpenetrating, interdependent, each influencing the other in an endless dance of cause and effect. This is as it should be. This is as it must be. Humans are not separate from nature. We are part of it, expressions of it, one more species among millions, perhaps more conscious than most but not thereby exempted from the basic rules that govern all life. We need air and water, food and shelter. We are born and we die. We exist within systems larger than ourselves, dependent on countless other species and processes for our survival. Cahokia's people understand this, live in accordance with it, take what they need but no more, give back what they can, maintain the balance that allows life to continue. The sky above us is a vault of darkness spangled with light, and we look up one last time at those eternal stars, those distant suns, and we feel the appropriate smallness of our own existence, the humility that should accompany consciousness, the gratitude for being allowed to witness this, to experience it, to be alive in a universe that seems designed to create and sustain awareness, that has somehow, through billions of years of evolution, produced beings capable of looking up and wondering, of asking questions, of seeking meaning. We are tired now, pleasantly so, ready ourselves for rest. The night has been long and rich, full of sights and sounds and thoughts, full of walking and watching and reflecting. We have seen Cahokia at dusk and into the night, have witnessed its daily life winding down, its people gathering and dispersing, its fires burning and dimming, its sound shifting from human activity to natural chorus, its light changing from sun to moon to stars. We have learned something, perhaps, about what it means to live well together, to create community, to build not just structures but relationships, not just cities but cultures. We have seen the care that humans can show each other when they recognize their fundamental interdependence, when they understand that no one succeeds alone, that all achievement is collective, that we rise or fall together. And now the city rests, and we rest with it, our journey complete, our witnessing done. The people sleep safely in their homes, watched over by the few who keep vigil, protected by walls and custom and the bonds of mutual obligation. The mounds stand silent and eternal. The river flows on toward the sea. The stars wheel in their courses, marking time in ways too vast for human comprehension but comforting nonetheless in their regularity, their predictability, their constancy. We settle ourselves here at the edge, between city and prairie, between human and wild, between night and the coming day. We close our eyes, or perhaps we keep them open, watching the stars, waiting for nothing, expecting nothing, simply present to this moment, this place, this deep and peaceful quiet that settles over everything like a blessing, like a benediction, like the gentle hand of darkness protecting all that sleeps beneath its shelter. The breathing of the earth continues, slow and steady. The turning of the world continues, patient and sure. The flow of time continues, carrying us all forward toward whatever futures wait, unknown and unknowable, but met with hope, with courage, with the strength that comes from community and shared purpose. Cahokia sleeps. The night holds. And in the holding, there is peace. The grasses whisper their endless song. The water moves in its eternal course. The stars shine down their ancient light. And everything rests, everything breathes, everything simply is, perfect in this moment, complete in this darkness, whole in this quiet that will last until dawn but which feels, somehow, as if it could last forever, as if this peace could be permanent, this stillness eternal. We let ourselves sink into that feeling, that peace, that deep and restful quiet. We release our thoughts, our concerns, our constant need to understand and control. We simply rest, here in this place, in this time, in this moment that is both specific and timeless, both historical and eternal. The night deepens around us, or perhaps it lightens. It is hard to tell now, hard to distinguish between the dark and our own closing eyes, between the silence and our own quieting mind, between the world and our experience of it. They merge, they blend, they become one thing, one presence, one vast and gentle peace that holds us as a mother holds a child, as the earth holds all who walk upon it, as the universe holds all that exists within it. And in that holding, we let go. We release. We rest. The last sound we hear is the river, distant and constant, speaking its wordless language of flow and journey, of source and destination, of the path between them that is life itself. Moving, changing, continuing always forward, always onward, carrying us with it through darkness toward light, through night toward morning, through this moment toward the next. And then even that sound fades, or we fade from hearing it, and there is only stillness, only peace, only the deep and gentle quiet of Cahokia at rest, breathing softly in the darkness, dreaming beneath the stars, safe and whole and perfect in its sleeping. The city dreams. The night embraces. And all is well. All is well. All is well.